Ever wondered what it would be like to live in an 8-sided house or one made entirely of steel? Let's dive into 20 unique old house styles that are rarely seen today. What made them so special, and why did they fade away? Let's find out. Octagon houses, popular 1850s to 1870s. Octagon houses were all the rage for a brief time, from the 1850s to the 1870s, thanks to a man named Orson Squire Fowler. Fowler was an advocate for these homes, believing that their unique design offered more space, better airflow, and an abundance of natural light. The idea was simple yet revolutionary. An octagon-shaped house would use the same perimeter as a traditional square or rectangular house, but provide 20% more interior space. This made the layout more efficient, especially for homeowners seeking to maximize their square footage without expanding the size of the foundation. These houses often had flat roofs, central cupolas for added light and ventilation, and wraparound verandas that connected the different sections of the house. The innovative design also featured open floor plans that encouraged airflow, which was thought to help keep the house cooler in the summer and more comfortable overall. Despite these advantages, the octagon house never truly became mainstream. There are a few notable examples, like the Longwood Mansion in Natchez, Mississippi, and the Octagon House in Watertown, Wisconsin. Even Fowler's own home, affectionately named Fowler's Folly, was eventually torn down. Though they didn't catch on widely, these houses remain a fascinating piece of architectural history, showcasing the experimental spirit of their time. Queen Anne style, 1880 to 1910. The Queen Anne style dominated American residential architecture from 1880 to 1910, replacing the more formal and rigid Second Empire style. This was a time of architectural creativity, and Queen Anne homes embraced a whimsical, almost storybook-like appearance. They stood out with their asymmetrical facades, expansive wraparound porches, and intricate decorative woodwork. Patterned shingles, bay windows, and stained glass were common features, adding layers of texture and color to the design. Many of these homes also boasted dramatic towers or turrets, giving them a castle-like charm. One of the defining characteristics of Queen Anne homes was their variety. No two houses looked exactly the same. Architects played with multiple rooflines, incorporating steep gables, dormers, and ornamental trim. These houses were built to impress, reflecting the prosperity and optimism of the late 19th century. However, after 1900, tastes began shifting towards simpler, more restrained architectural styles like the Colonial Revival and Craftsman homes. The elaborate and ornate Queen Anne look gradually faded from popularity. Despite this, some stunning examples remain, with the Carson Mansion in Eureka, California, being one of the most famous. With its towering spires and lavish details, it perfectly captures the grandeur and eccentricity of the Queen Anne era. American Foursquare, 1895 to 1939. The American Foursquare emerged in the late 19th century as a direct response to the ornate, highly decorative Victorian homes that had dominated American neighborhoods. Homebuyers were beginning to favor simplicity, practicality, and efficiency over intricate detailing, and the Foursquare delivered exactly that. Built between 1895 and 1939, these homes were known for their boxy, 2.5-story design, which maximized interior space while maintaining a clean and straightforward aesthetic. Sometimes called the Prairie Box, the American Foursquare shared design elements with the Prairie School movement, championed by architects like Frank Lloyd Wright. These homes typically featured a symmetrical layout, a large covered porch supported by columns, a hipped roof with a central dormer, and built-in cabinetry for added functionality. The emphasis was on open, airy spaces that provided comfort without unnecessary ornamentation. One of the most interesting aspects of the American Foursquare is how widely accessible it became. Companies like Sears, Roebuck and Company, and Aladdin sold these homes as mail-order kits, allowing families across the country to purchase and build them affordably. Their timeless, practical design ensured their popularity for decades, and many still stand today as a testament to early 20th century American architecture. American Craftsman, 1905 to 1930. The American Craftsman style emerged in the early 20th century as a celebration of skilled craftsmanship, natural materials, and simplicity, a departure from the overly ornate Victorian homes of the previous era. Craftsman houses emphasized quality over decoration, favoring solid wood, stone, and handcrafted details. This style flourished between 1905 and 1930, especially in California, where its open, airy designs suited the mild climate. Inspired by the Prairie School and shingle styles, Craftsman homes were instantly recognizable by their low-pitched gabled roofs, wide eaves with exposed rafters, and decorative beams or brackets. Many featured built-in furniture, such as bookshelves and window seats, reinforcing the idea that a home should be both beautiful and functional. Gustav Stickley, a designer and furniture maker, was one of the most influential figures in popularizing the Craftsman aesthetic through his magazine, The Craftsman. Unlike the British arts and crafts movement, which often catered to the wealthy, American Craftsman homes were designed to be accessible and affordable. However, by the 1930s, the style began to fade, replaced by simpler, more modern designs. Today, one of the finest surviving examples is the Gamble House in Pasadena, California, which perfectly embodies the warmth, craftsmanship, and natural beauty that defined the movement. Shotgun House, 1870 to 1920s. The shotgun house is one of the most distinctive and enduring architectural styles of the American South, popular from the 1870s through the 1920s. These homes are long, narrow, and rectangular, with rooms arranged in a straight line from front to back, usually without hallways. The design was highly practical, allowing for efficient airflow, which was essential in the hot, humid climate of the South. Though most commonly associated with New Orleans, shotgun houses are believed to have roots in Haitian and West African architecture, brought to the United States through cultural exchanges in the Caribbean. Their simple, no-frills design made them affordable to build, making them a popular choice for working-class families. They also allowed for high-density housing, as multiple shotgun homes could be built close together on small lots. Over time, many shotgun houses fell into disrepair, especially in urban areas. However, in recent decades, they have been rediscovered and restored, often as part of gentrification efforts in cities like New Orleans. One of the most famous examples of a shotgun house is the birthplace of Elvis Presley in Tupelo, Mississippi, a humble yet historically significant reminder of this uniquely Southern architectural style. Which of these old house styles would you love to live in today, and why? Tudor Revival, 1890s to 1940s. The Tudor Revival style, popular from the 1890s through the 1940s, brought a touch of medieval England to American neighborhoods. Inspired by the rustic charm of 16th century English cottages and manor houses, these homes were easily recognizable by their steeply pitched gabled roofs, decorative half-timbering, and tall, prominent chimneys, often with ornate brickwork or chimney pots. Wealthy Americans in the early 20th century were especially drawn to Tudor Revival homes, as the style evoked a sense of old-world charm and craftsmanship. These houses often featured arched doorways, leaded glass windows, and textured stucco or brick exteriors, creating a storybook-like appearance. Interiors typically included exposed wooden beams, grand fireplaces, and cozy, irregularly shaped rooms that enhanced their medieval character. However, after World War II, the style fell out of favor as Americans turned to simpler, more modern housing designs. By the 1970s and 1980s, builders seeking to replicate the Tudor look began using synthetic materials like faux wood and manufactured stone, often resulting in a less authentic appearance. Dutch Colonial Revival, 1910s to 1930s. The Dutch Colonial Revival style, popular from the 1910s to the 1930s, was a nostalgic reinterpretation of the 17th and 18th century homes built by early Dutch settlers in what is now New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. The most defining feature of this style is its gambrel roof, which resembles a barn roof with two slopes on each side, allowing for more usable space on the upper floor. Wide eaves, large dormer windows, and a symmetrical facade with decorative shutters further contributed to its charming, traditional look. Unlike the original Dutch colonial homes, which were often constructed with brick or stone, the revival versions were commonly built with wood siding, reflecting early 20th century building trends. Interiors were designed for comfort, often featuring central hallways, large fireplaces, and cozy living spaces that emphasized warmth and practicality. While many Dutch colonial revival homes were modest suburban residences, some grander examples stand out. The Biltmore Estate, built for George Washington Vanderbilt II, incorporates Dutch colonial elements within its eclectic design. Another well-known example is 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York, infamous as the setting of the Amityville Horror. Despite its decline in new construction after the 1930s, Dutch colonial revival homes remain beloved for their timeless appeal and historical charm. Lustron Homes, 1948 to 1950. Lustron Homes were an innovative response to the post-World War II housing crisis, offering a unique solution through prefabricated, all-steel construction. Designed by Carl Strandlund and produced between 1948 and 1950. These homes were built to provide affordable, durable housing for returning veterans and their families. Unlike traditional wood-framed houses, Lustron Homes featured enameled steel panels for both the exterior and interior, making them highly resistant to fire, termites, and decay. More than 2,000 Lustron homes were constructed across the United States, with a few even exported to Venezuela. Their design emphasized efficiency and ease of maintenance. Metal walls could be wiped clean with a damp cloth, and built-in storage units eliminated the need for bulky furniture. Many models included an innovative combination washer-dryer, a rare feature for the time. The homes were shipped in kits and assembled on site, much like a life-sized puzzle. Despite their durability, Lustron Homes faced financial and logistical challenges. Production ceased in 1950, largely due to government restrictions and high manufacturing costs. Today, surviving Lustron houses are prized as mid-century architectural relics, with preservationists working to maintain these rare, futuristic homes that once promised a revolution in American housing. Please comment 1 to let me know you'll be watching this video until the end. Atomic Ranch, 1950s to 1960s. The Atomic Ranch, a stylish evolution of the classic ranch house, defined mid-century modern architecture in the 1950s and 1960s. This design emphasized simplicity, functionality, and a seamless connection between indoor and outdoor spaces. With sleek lines, open floor plans, and large windows, these homes embraced the optimism of the post-war era and the space-age aesthetic. Architect Cliff May played a crucial role in popularizing the ranch style as early as the 1930s, drawing inspiration from Spanish colonial haciendas. His designs featured sprawling, single-story layouts that encouraged casual, open living, an idea that flourished in the Atomic Ranch era. Homes often included flat or butterfly roofs, asymmetrical facades, and walls of glass that blurred the boundary between interior and exterior. Vibrant colors, geometric patterns, and futuristic materials like formica and aluminum added to their distinctive look. In California, developer Joseph Eichler helped bring atomic ranch homes to the masses. His designs, heavily influenced by the Bauhaus and Frank Lloyd Wright's Usonian homes, featured post and beam construction, atriums, and carports instead of traditional garages. While their popularity declined in later decades, atomic ranch homes remain highly sought after today, celebrated for their retro charm and timeless modernity. Brutalist Homes, 1950s to 1970s. Brutalist homes, emerging between the 1950s and 1970s, were a bold departure from traditional residential architecture, embracing raw concrete, geometric forms, and a minimalist aesthetic. Inspired by the modernist movement and the work of architects like Le Corbusier, this style emphasized functionality over ornamentation. The term brutalism itself comes from the French phrase béton brut, meaning raw concrete, which was the defining material of these buildings. Brutalist homes often featured massive, monolithic structures with rough, unfinished surfaces. They prioritized practicality, with open floor plans, exposed structural elements, and a focus on durability. While the style was more commonly seen in social housing projects and institutional buildings, such as universities and government complexes, some architects experimented with brutalist principles in private homes, designing striking residences that stood in stark contrast to traditional suburban houses. By the late 1970s, brutalism fell out of favor as critics associated its heavy, fortress-like appearance with urban decay and institutional coldness. Many brutalist structures were demolished or altered to soften their stark look. However, in recent years, there has been a resurgence of interest in the style, with architects and preservationists recognizing its raw beauty, structural honesty, and sculptural impact. If you could design your own dream home based on these historic styles, what features would you include? Neoclassical house style. Neoclassical homes stand as timeless symbols of grandeur and elegance, drawing direct inspiration from the classical architecture of ancient Greece and Rome. Emerging in the late 18th century and remaining popular well into the 20th century, this style is characterized by its imposing scale, symmetrical design, and meticulous attention to detail. These homes exude a sense of formality and refinement, often serving as visual statements of wealth and prestige. One of the most defining features of neoclassical houses is their use of tall, dramatic columns, typically in the Doric, Ionic, or Corinthian order. These columns often frame the entrance, lending a stately, temple-like presence to the facade. Some variations extend these columns across the entire front, creating a grand colonnade reminiscent of ancient palaces. The symmetry of these homes is further emphasized through evenly spaced windows, centered doorways, and balanced proportions that create a harmonious aesthetic. Ornamental details, such as pediments, intricate moldings, and decorative cornices add to the architectural sophistication. Doorways and windows are frequently adorned with classical motifs, including pilasters and fan lights. While the style has evolved over time, neoclassical homes remain a favored choice for civic buildings, historic mansions, and even modern luxury residences, preserving their timeless appeal. Cape Cod house style. The Cape Cod house style is one of the most enduring and recognizable in American architecture, known for its charming simplicity and practical design. Originating in the late 17th century, this style was heavily influenced by English cottages, but adapted to withstand the harsh New England climate. Its defining features, steeply pitched roofs, wood siding, and symmetrical facades, made it both functional and visually appealing. Early Cape Cod homes were modest, single-story structures with a central chimney, designed to retain heat during brutal winters. The steep roof lines helped shed snow, while the sturdy wooden construction provided durability against coastal storms. Multi-pane windows allowed natural light inside, and dormer windows, often added later, helped bring more ventilation and usable space to the upper half-story. Though Cape Cod homes remained a regional style for centuries, they experienced a massive resurgence in popularity during the 1930s, particularly as affordable housing options in suburban developments. Modern variations often include larger footprints, updated materials, and additional wings or attached garages, but they still retain the cozy, timeless appeal of their historic predecessors. Country French house style. Country French homes bring a touch of European elegance to American architecture, blending rustic charm with refined details. This style traces its roots back to the 18th century, when French settlers introduced it to regions like Louisiana and the Mississippi Valley. Inspired by rural homes in the French countryside, these houses are known for their graceful proportions, steeply pitched roofs, and a warm, inviting aesthetic. Typically, country French homes are one-story, though some feature a second level tucked under the roofline. Their exteriors often showcase stucco walls, sometimes combined with stone or brick, and a distinctive half-timbered frame that hints at medieval European craftsmanship. Narrow, tall windows with decorative shutters enhance the home's old-world charm, while arched entryways and wrought iron accents add to the refined look. The roof design, either hipped or side-gabled, is one of the most recognizable features, giving the home a stately yet cozy presence. Many country French homes are set back on spacious lots with winding driveways and beautifully landscaped gardens, further enhancing their curb appeal. While the style retains its historic influences, modern versions may include contemporary amenities while preserving the classic European-inspired elegance that makes country French homes so timeless. Colonial house style. Colonial-style homes are among the most iconic and enduring architectural styles in the United States, dating back to the early 1600s. Rooted in European influences, particularly from England, these homes were built to reflect symmetry, balance, and practicality. Over time, colonial architecture evolved into several sub-styles, including Georgian, Federal, and Dutch colonial, each with its own unique characteristics while maintaining the core elements of the style. Typically 2 or 3 stories tall, colonial homes feature a rectangular floor plan with a centered front entrance flanked by evenly spaced windows. The facades are traditionally constructed from brick or wood, giving the homes a stately yet inviting appearance. A hallmark of the colonial style is its functional layout. Common areas such as the kitchen, dining room, and family room are located on the first floor, while bedrooms occupy the second floor, maintaining a clear separation between public and private spaces. Dormer windows, decorative shutters, and columned entryways are common exterior features, adding charm and visual interest. Many colonial homes also include fireplaces, a nod to their historical roots when they were essential for heating. Despite their traditional origins, colonial-style homes have remained popular due to their timeless appeal, adaptable design, and enduring sense of elegance. Victorian house style. Victorian-style homes are some of the most ornate and visually striking residences ever built, reflecting the grandeur and creativity of the 19th century. Emerging during Queen Victoria's reign, 1837 to 1901, this architectural style flourished during the Industrial Revolution, a time when mass production allowed for intricate decorative details that were once too costly or difficult to create by hand. These homes are easily recognizable by their steeply pitched roofs, prominent front-facing gables, and elaborate woodwork. Symmetry is a defining feature, with bay windows, turrets, and towers adding to their whimsical charm. Patterned shingles and intricate trim, sometimes called gingerbread, contribute to the highly decorative appearance. Many Victorian homes also feature expansive wraparound porches with turned posts and spindles, inviting both function and ornamentation. Inside, Victorian homes were known for their lavish details, high ceilings, intricate moldings, richly patterned wallpapers, and stained glass windows. While traditional Victorian interiors embraced deep, bold colors and elaborate furnishings, modern interpretations often blend classic architectural features with contemporary color palettes and materials. This allows homeowners to maintain the home's historical character while incorporating modern conveniences. Whether restored to their original grandeur or updated with a fresh twist, Victorian homes remain a symbol of craftsmanship, elegance, and artistic expression. Have you ever lived in or visited a home with one of these classic designs? Share your experience. Tudor house style. Tudor-style homes bring the charm and character of medieval England to American neighborhoods, blending old-world craftsmanship with modern adaptations. Though inspired by the architecture of England's Tudor dynasty, 1485 to 1603. The Tudor Revival style seen today emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, borrowing elements from medieval cottages and grand manor houses alike. A hallmark of Tudor homes is their steeply pitched roofs, often punctuated by prominent cross gables. Decorative half-timbering, dark wooden beams set against light-colored stucco or stone creates a distinctive, storybook-like appearance. Brickwork is commonly used, especially on lower levels or chimneys, adding warmth and texture to the facade. These homes also feature tall, narrow windows with multiple small panes, often arranged in groups, and framed with dark wood or leaded glass for an old-world aesthetic. Inside, Tudor homes exude coziness with exposed wooden beams, stone fireplaces, and arched doorways. The interiors often embrace rich, earthy tones and textured materials, enhancing their medieval-inspired charm. While traditional Tudor homes were grand estates, the American Tudor Revival adapted the style for suburban living. Cottage house style. Cottage-style homes capture the charm and coziness of old-world European dwellings, drawing inspiration from the thatched roof cottages of medieval England. These homes became especially popular in the United States during the 1920s and 1930s, offering a quaint, welcoming alternative to larger, more formal architectural styles. Defined by their storybook appeal, cottage-style houses often feature steeply pitched roofs, sometimes with cross gables that add dimension to the structure. Arched entryways, rounded doors, and casement windows with multiple small panes further enhance their fairy tale aesthetic. Exteriors are typically clad in brick, stone, or stucco, creating a rustic, handcrafted look that blends seamlessly into natural surroundings. Inside, cottage homes prioritize warmth and comfort, often incorporating exposed wooden beams, built-in shelving, and cozy fireplaces as focal points. The layouts tend to be compact yet efficient, making the most of available space while fostering a sense of intimacy. Lush gardens, winding pathways, and charming window boxes overflowing with flowers frequently complement the exterior, completing the enchanting, storybook feel. Though traditional cottages were modest in size, modern interpretations often expand the design while maintaining the same inviting, nostalgic charm that has made them beloved for generations. Mediterranean house style. Mediterranean-style homes exude warmth, elegance, and a seamless connection to the outdoors, drawing inspiration from the villas of Spain, Italy, and Greece. This architectural style became especially popular in the U.S. during the early 20th century, particularly in coastal regions like California and Florida, where the climate complements its design. One of the most distinctive features of Mediterranean homes is the low-pitched red tile roof, which not only enhances the aesthetic appeal, but also provides excellent heat resistance. The exteriors are typically clad in stucco or adobe, often in earthy tones like white, beige, or terracotta, reinforcing the sun-drenched old-world charm. Arches play a significant role in Mediterranean architecture, appearing in doorways, windows, and covered walkways, adding to the home's graceful and inviting character. Wrought iron accents, such as balconies, railings, and decorative grillwork, further enhance the European aesthetic. A hallmark of this style is its U-shaped floor plan, which centers around a lush courtyard featuring a fountain, gardens, or even an outdoor fireplace. This design encourages indoor-outdoor living with large windows, French doors, and loggias opening to the courtyard, allowing natural light and cool breezes to flow through the home. Inside, Mediterranean-style homes often feature exposed wooden beams, tile or stone flooring, and ornate details like hand-painted tiles and carved wood accents. The overall atmosphere is one of relaxed luxury, blending rustic charm with timeless elegance. Italianate house style. The Italianate house style, popular in the U.S. from the 1840s to the 1880s, reflects the grandeur of 19th-century Italian villas, with a distinct emphasis on vertical proportions and ornate detailing. Inspired by the picturesque movement, these homes were a departure from the rigid symmetry of earlier architectural styles, favoring a more romantic and decorative aesthetic. A defining feature of Italianate homes is their overhanging eaves supported by decorative brackets, often arranged in pairs or elaborate patterns. The roofs are typically low-pitched or gently sloping, sometimes with a central cupola or square tower, adding to the home's dramatic silhouette. Windows are another hallmark of the style. Tall, narrow, and often arched, they emphasize the home's height and elegance. Elaborate window crowns or pediments further enhance their ornamental appeal. Entrances are grand and inviting, often framed by double doors with arched or heavily carved surrounds. Wraparound porches with delicate columns and balustrades add to the charm, creating welcoming outdoor spaces. Most Italianate homes are 2 or 3 stories high, featuring rectangular or L-shaped floor plans. Their facades are richly detailed, with intricate moldings, quoins, and decorative brackets giving the homes a refined and stately presence. Although Italianate architecture declined in popularity by the late 19th century, many well-preserved examples remain, particularly in historic districts across the U.S. The style's blend of old-world elegance and American craftsmanship makes it a standout in architectural history. Greek Revival house style. The Greek Revival house style, popular from the 1820s to the 1860s, is one of the most iconic architectural movements in American history. Inspired by classical Greek temples, these homes symbolize grandeur, democracy, and timeless elegance. Distinguished by their bold white facades, Greek Revival homes often feature grand entryways framed by towering columns, typically of the Doric, Ionic, or Corinthian order. These columns support a prominent pediment, further emphasizing the home's resemblance to ancient Greek structures. Low-pitched or gabled roofs add to the style's commanding presence, while symmetrical layouts ensure a balanced and stately appearance. Large, rectangular windows, often with decorative lintels, allow for ample natural light. Entrances frequently include transoms and side lights, enhancing the sense of openness. In the South, Greek Revival homes are especially notable for their expansive porches, offering shade and a connection to the outdoors. These porches, often adorned with rocking chairs, create inviting spaces for relaxation and social gatherings. Greek Revival architecture dominated the U.S. during the early to mid-19th century, influencing not only residential buildings, but also courthouses, banks, and government structures. Today, these homes remain a symbol of classical beauty and historic charm. Illegal now, but normal in 1970s. The 1970s were a time of freedom and risk. Things that seemed totally normal back then are now illegal. Kids bought cigarettes for their parents, played with dangerous toys, and even rode in cars without seatbelts. What changed? From lawn darts to leaded gasoline, many everyday things we took for granted. Decades ago, many kids viewed railroad tracks as an adventure waiting to happen. Walking the rails, balancing on the steel beams, and taking shortcuts across train yards were common activities. Some kids even placed pennies on the tracks to see them flatten under passing trains, completely unaware of the dangers. There were fewer restrictions, and the general attitude toward railway safety was much more relaxed. However, times have changed. Today, railroad companies enforce strict trespassing laws, and safety campaigns warn against the severe dangers of playing near train tracks. Modern trains are faster, quieter, and take much longer to stop, making them far more dangerous than most people realize. Organizations like Operation Lifesaver work to educate the public about railway safety. What was once an innocent childhood pastime is now recognized as a life-threatening risk, with hefty fines and serious legal consequences for trespassing. Lawn darts. In the 1970s, lawn darts were a backyard staple. Families and friends would gather outside, taking turns hurling large metal-tipped darts toward a circular target on the grass. The game seemed innocent enough, like horseshoes, but with high-flying projectiles. However, the reality was far more dangerous. These darts weren't lightweight toys. They were heavy and sharp enough to pierce the ground, and unfortunately, sometimes people. A misplaced throw or a distracted child wandering into the game zone could result in serious injuries and, tragically, even fatalities. For years, warnings piled up, but the game remained wildly popular. It wasn't until the late 1980s, after multiple severe accidents, that the U.S. government finally banned lawn darts altogether. Today, a safer version exists with blunt, weighted tips, but for those who played with the originals, the thrill wasn't just about hitting the target, it was about dodging incoming darts. It's shocking to think that such a dangerous toy was once a normal part of summer fun. But back then, a little risk was just part of childhood. Drunk driving with high BAC limits. In the 1970s, drinking and driving were shockingly common, and legal blood alcohol concentration BAC limits were far more lenient than today. Many states allowed drivers to get behind the wheel with a BAC of 0.10% or even higher, well above the current national standard of 0.08%. In some places, law enforcement took a relaxed approach, often letting intoxicated drivers off with a warning or a suggestion to drive safely. Alcohol-fueled parties, bars, and even corporate events often ended with people confidently driving home despite having had several drinks. Many believed they could handle their liquor, and the social stigma surrounding drunk driving was minimal. It wasn't until the late 1970s and early 1980s that the tide began to turn. A major turning point came in 1980 when Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MADD, was founded after a grieving mother lost her child to a drunk driver. MAD and other advocacy groups fought hard for stricter DUI laws, public awareness campaigns, and tougher enforcement. By the mid-1980s, most states had lowered the legal BAC limit to 0.08%, and drunk driving began to be seen as a serious crime rather than just bad judgment. Red dye number 2. Back in the 1970s, a major health scare erupted over a food additive known as red dye number. Second studies at the time suggested a possible link between the dye and health risks, sparking widespread public concern. As a result, the U.S. banned red dye number 2 in 1976. But here's where it gets interesting. Mars, Incorporated, the company behind M&Ms, had never actually used that specific dye in their red candies. Instead, they used red number 40, a completely different coloring agent that wasn't under scrutiny. Despite this, the fear and confusion surrounding artificial dyes led Mars to make a surprising decision. They pulled red M&Ms from production entirely in 1976, not because they had to, but because they wanted to avoid alarming customers. For over a decade, M&M lovers had to settle for the other colors in the bag until red M&Ms finally made a comeback in 1987. By then, food dyes had been reevaluated, and red number 40 was considered safe for consumption. It's a perfect example of how public perception, even when not entirely based on fact, can shape corporate decisions and consumer products in unexpected ways. Minimal airline security. In the 1970s, air travel was remarkably relaxed compared to today. There were no long security lines, no X-ray screenings, and no need to remove shoes or limit liquids. Passengers could walk straight to the gate with family and friends, and cockpit doors remained unlocked mid-flight. However, this lax security came at a cost. Hijackings surged, with over 200 incidents recorded in 1972 alone. Some were politically motivated, while others involved ransom demands. Despite this, major security overhauls were slow to take effect. The devastating attacks of September 11, 2001, changed everything. The Aviation and Transportation Security Act led to the creation of the TSA, ushering in strict security measures, including baggage screenings, reinforced cockpit doors, and passenger screening protocols that continue to evolve today. Child labor. In the 1970s, it wasn't unusual to see children working, especially in agriculture, family businesses, or lower-income households. Many parents believed that having a job at a young age built character, taught responsibility, and prepared kids for adulthood. Paper routes, farm work, and small retail jobs were considered normal ways for children to contribute financially. In some cases, kids worked long hours in physically demanding conditions, sometimes at the expense of their education. While the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, had been in place since 1938, child labor laws remained relatively lax, particularly in industries like farming, where children could legally work under certain conditions. The dangers of child labor, including exposure to hazardous machinery, toxic chemicals, and exhausting work hours, raised concerns among lawmakers and advocacy groups. In 1976, the Child Labor Amendment was introduced in an effort to provide stronger protections against exploitation, but it wasn't until 1989 that real change gained momentum. That year, the United Nations adopted the Convention on the Rights of the Child, emphasizing the importance of education over employment. The U.S. eventually tightened regulations under the FLSA, making it illegal for children to work in hazardous conditions. Clackers. If you were a kid in the 1970s, chances are you remember clackers, the toy that was as thrilling as it was dangerous. Made of two heavy acrylic balls attached to a string, the goal was to swing them up and down as fast as possible, making them collide with a loud clack. The faster you went, the more impressive the sound and the more skill it took to keep them going. But there was a catch. If you lost control, those hard plastic balls could smack you right in the face, or worse, shatter into flying shards. It didn't take long for schools and parents to catch on. Reports of injuries and broken clacker balls led to widespread bans in schools across the country. But, as with any forbidden toy, that only made them more popular. Kids kept playing with them, finding ways to sneak them onto playgrounds and challenge their friends to see who could keep their clackers going the longest. Eventually, safety concerns forced manufacturers to redesign them with softer materials, but for those who grew up in the 70s, the original clackers remain a wild and unforgettable piece of childhood nostalgia. Smoking on airplanes. Flying in the 1970s was a completely different experience from what we know today. Step onto a plane, and you'd be greeted not just by flight attendants in stylish uniforms, but also by the thick haze of cigarette smoke lingering in the cabin. Airlines had so-called smoking and non-smoking sections. But in reality, the smoke didn't care about the seating chart. It drifted everywhere. Whether you were a smoker or not, you were breathing it in. For the entire flight, for years, this was just an accepted part of air travel. Passengers casually lit up mid-flight, ashtrays were built into every armrest, and cigarette smoke mixed with the scent of jet fuel and in-flight meals. But, as the dangers of secondhand smoke became harder to ignore, pressure mounted to change the rules. The first step came in 1988, when smoking was banned on short domestic flights in the U.S. Over the next decade, restrictions tightened until, in 2000, smoking was completely outlawed on all U.S. flights. Please comment 1 to let me know you'll be watching this video until the end. Lead paint. In the 1970s, lead-based paint was as common as shag carpets and wood-paneled walls. It covered everything: homes, schools, playground equipment, even children's toys and cribs. Bright, durable, and long-lasting, it seemed like the perfect choice for decorating and protecting surfaces. But beneath its convenience lurked a dangerous secret. As research into lead poisoning grew, the risks became impossible to ignore. Children exposed to lead dust or chipped paint suffered severe health problems, including developmental delays, learning disabilities, and even organ damage. The shocking reality prompted the U.S. government to take action, and in 1978, lead-based paint was banned for residential use. But by then, millions of homes were already coated in it, and many still are today. Even now, homeowners and renovators must be cautious. Disturbing old paint can release toxic lead dust into the air. It's wild to think that something once considered safe and standard was actually poisoning people for decades. The story of lead paint is a stark reminder that just because something is widely used doesn't mean it's harmless. Minimal child car seat regulations. Back in the 1970s, child car seat laws were practically non-existent. Most parents relied on standard seat belts to keep their children secure, and many didn't even do that. It was common to see kids bouncing around the back seat, lying across the bench, or even standing up while the car was in motion. Some parents placed babies in makeshift carriers or simply held them in their laps, believing that their grip alone would keep them safe in an accident. At the time, car seats existed, but they were designed more for convenience than safety. Many models were simply booster seats that helped kids sit higher so they could see out the window. There were no strict crash testing standards, and very few parents considered car seats essential. It wasn't until a groundbreaking 1985 study by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, revealed that car crashes were the leading cause of death for children aged 1 to 4 that attitudes began to change. Today, every state has laws mandating child safety seats, and studies show that properly used car seats reduce fatal injury risk by 54% for toddlers and 71% for infants in passenger cars. Owning exotic pets without permits. In the 1970s, keeping exotic pets like iguanas, macaws, and even boa constrictors was surprisingly common and largely unregulated. Unlike today, when permits and strict guidelines are in place, back then, people could walk into a pet store and buy a monkey, a parrot, or even a big cat without much scrutiny. As the exotic pet trade grew, so did concerns about public safety, animal welfare, and ecological impact. Escaped or abandoned pets sometimes became invasive species, while others posed serious risks to their owners and communities. In response, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service introduced regulations in 1980 to curb the trade and protect both animals and humans. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, most states had enacted laws requiring permits, ownership documentation, and stricter care standards. Despite these regulations, a 2013 Association of Zoos and Aquariums report estimated that over 50,000 exotic pets were still being kept in the U.S. without proper permits before enforcement efforts intensified. Selling unpasteurized milk. In the 1970s, raw milk was widely available and sought after for its creamy texture and supposed health benefits. Farmers and small dairies sold it directly to consumers, often without restrictions. However, concerns over foodborne illnesses linked to unpasteurized dairy, such as Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria, led to increased scrutiny. By the 1980s, health officials warned against raw milk consumption due to outbreaks of serious infections. In 1987, the FDA mandated pasteurization for all interstate milk sales, and individual states began enforcing stricter regulations. Today, raw milk remains controversial, with some states allowing sales under specific conditions, while others ban it outright. Candy cigarettes. Back in the 1970s, candy cigarettes were a childhood staple. Sold in every corner store, these sugary sticks were designed to mimic real cigarettes, complete with white paper wrapping and a red tip to resemble a burning ember. Some even had a puff of powdered sugar that created a cloud of smoke when kids blew on them. It was all part of the fun, pretending to be just like the grown-ups, mimicking the way they held, flicked, and smoked their candy cigs. At the time, most parents didn't think twice about it. Smoking was everywhere, on TV, in restaurants, even in airplanes, so it wasn't surprising that kids wanted to imitate adults. But as awareness of smoking's health risks grew, concerns about candy cigarettes followed. Critics argued that they normalized smoking for children, potentially leading them toward the real thing later in life. By the late 20th century, bans and packaging changes followed, with many countries restricting their sale or rebranding them as candy sticks without the cigarette-like design. Today, it's hard to imagine a candy so closely tied to smoking being widely sold to kids, but in the 70s, it was just another treat in the candy aisle. Drinking age of 18. In the 1970s, if you were 18, you could vote, serve in the military, and in many states, legally buy a drink. The push to lower the drinking age gained momentum after the 26th Amendment was ratified in 1971, lowering the voting age from 21 to 18. The argument was simple. If young adults were mature enough to vote and be drafted into war, they should be trusted with alcohol. Many states agreed, and by the mid-1970s, the legal drinking age had been lowered to 18, 19, or 20 in most of the country. However, this change came with serious consequences. Fatal drunk driving accidents surged, particularly among teenagers and young adults. Studies showed that alcohol played a role in more than 60% of traffic deaths, with a significant portion of those fatalities occurring among drivers aged 16 to 20. Concerned about rising numbers, lawmakers took action. In 1984, Congress passed the National Minimum Drinking Age Act, which pressured states to raise the drinking age back to 21 by threatening to cut federal highway funding. One by one, states complied, and by 1988, all 50 states had adopted the higher drinking age. Today, it's hard to imagine a time when 18-year-olds could legally grab a beer, but for a brief period in the 70s, that was the norm. Flame retardants in the 70s. In the 1970s, flame retardants were everywhere. They were added to pajamas, furniture, and even baby clothes to prevent fires. At the time, it seemed like a smart idea. After all, keeping kids and families safe from fire hazards was a priority. But what people didn't realize was the hidden danger. These chemicals didn't just stay on the surface. They were absorbed through the skin, and over time, studies began to link them to a range of health problems, including hormone disruption and even cancer. As the years went by, concerns over the safety of these chemicals grew, leading to stricter regulations and the eventual banning of many flame retardants in the 2000s. However, the damage had already been done. Older furniture, particularly pieces from the 70s and 80s, still contains high levels of these harmful chemicals. In fact, if you own vintage furniture or clothing from that era, there's a chance you're still in contact with those chemicals, even though they've been banned. When kids could buy cigarettes. In the 1970s, smoking was so common it became a relic of the past. What's something from the 1970s that you think should have never been banned? Leaded gasoline. In the 1970s, pulling up to a gas station meant choosing between regular or premium, not unleaded or leaded. Nearly every pump dispensed leaded gasoline, a fuel additive that had been used for decades to boost engine performance and reduce knocking. Drivers loved it, and car manufacturers built engines to take advantage of it. But what people didn't realize at the time was that every trip to the pump was also contributing to a serious public health crisis. As cars burned leaded fuel, they released toxic lead particles into the air. These pollutants weren't just bad for the environment, they were harmful to human health, especially for children. Studies began linking lead exposure to developmental delays, brain damage, and behavioral issues, prompting growing concern among scientists and policymakers. By the mid-1970s, the U.S. government took action, mandating a gradual phase-out of leaded gasoline. At first, there was pushback. Many believed unleaded fuel would harm car engines and old habits die hard. But by the 1990s, leaded gasoline had mostly disappeared, marking the end is now illegal. Cyclamates. In the 1960s, cyclamates were everywhere. This artificial sweetener was the go-to ingredient for diet sodas, sugar-free treats, and even some processed foods. It was 30 times sweeter than sugar, had no calories, and was considered a game-changer for those looking to cut back on sugar. One of the most famous sodas of the era, Tab, relied on cyclamates to achieve its signature taste. But in 1969, everything changed. Concerns arose that cyclamates might be linked to cancer after a study found that extremely high doses caused bladder tumors in lab rats. This led the U.S. to ban the sweetener in 1969, officially removing it from the market in 1970. In response, companies quickly pivoted, replacing cyclamates with saccharin, another artificial sweetener that had its own share of controversy. Interestingly, while the U.S. took a hard stance, many other countries never followed suit. Today, cyclamates remain legal in places like Canada and Europe, and later studies have questioned whether the original cancer concerns were valid. Still, the ban was never reversed in the U.S., making cyclamates a relic of the past in American food and drink. Cigarette advertising on TV. Back in the 1970s, cigarette advertising was impossible to escape. Everywhere you looked, TV commercials, glossy magazine spreads, towering billboards, there were images of rugged cowboys, stylish socialites, and smooth-talking actors making smoking look effortlessly cool. The Marlboro Man and Joe Camel became household names, and catchy slogans stuck in people's minds. Tobacco companies weren't just selling cigarettes, they were selling a lifestyle. But growing health concerns about smoking led to a major crackdown. In 1971, the U.S. government banned cigarette ads from TV and radio, marking a huge shift in tobacco marketing. That didn't stop the industry, though. It simply adapted. Instead of commercials, cigarette brands flooded magazines, plastered their logos on race cars and sporting events, and even slipped their products into Hollywood movies. The ban may have pushed tobacco off the airwaves, but it didn't stop cigarettes from remaining a dominant part of pop culture. It wasn't until decades later that stricter regulations on advertising and sponsorships made a dent in Big Tobacco's influence. The Easy Bake Oven. In the 1970s, the Easy Bake Oven was every kid's dream toy, a miniature kitchen appliance that let children bake real cakes and cookies using just a tiny light bulb. But that seemingly harmless incandescent bulb got incredibly hot, often reaching temperatures over 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 degrees Celsius. While kids were excited to whip up their tiny treats, they also ran the risk of serious burns if they accidentally touched the interior. At the time, safety standards weren't as strict as they are today, and parents largely accepted minor burns as part of childhood. But as reports of injuries increased, concerns grew. Children's fingers could get trapped inside the oven, and, in some cases, kids suffered second-degree burns. By the early 2000s, changes were made, and modern Easy Bake Ovens replaced the traditional light bulb with safer enclosed heating elements that provide controlled warmth without the risk of direct contact. For those who grew up in the 70s, the original Easy Bake Oven brings back fond memories of mixing batter and waiting eagerly for a tiny cake to finish baking. But looking back, it's wild to think a toy oven once posed such a serious burn risk. Lax seatbelt laws. In the 1970s, seatbelt use was more of a personal choice than a safety requirement. Many cars, especially older models, didn't even come with seatbelts in the back seats, and if they did, people often ignored them. It was common to see kids moving freely around the car, sitting on the armrests, or even standing on the back seat during long drives. The idea of buckling up just wasn't a priority. At the time, many drivers believed seatbelts were restrictive, uncomfortable, or even unnecessary. Some even thought they could be dangerous in certain accidents, fearing they might get trapped inside a wrecked car. Because of this, compliance remained low, even after safety campaigns pushed for change. It wasn't until 1984 that New York became the first state to enact a mandatory seatbelt law, and even then, many people resisted. Over time, more states followed, and by the 1990s, seatbelt laws became the norm. Today, studies from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, confirm that seatbelts reduce the risk of death by 45% for front seat passengers and up to 60% for backseat passengers. Looking back, it's shocking to think how casual people once were about a life-saving device we now take for granted. That's a wrap on these fascinating old house styles. Did we miss any? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this, check out other videos in this series for more architectural nostalgia. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Who Remembers. Your support keeps us going. Thanks for watching.